The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Salem Media of Hawaii.
Welcome to Generations Radio, where the focus is on our seniors and their families. We are here each Saturday afternoon from 5 until 6 p.m., bringing you resourceful information with our radio team of professionals in the field of aging. Stay with us for the next 1 hour as we explore different ways to make life more exciting and meaningful for our extraordinary seniors. Right here on AM 690 The Answer. And now, here is our host and the publisher of Generations Magazine, Percy Ihara.
Welcome back to Generations Radio. I am Percy Ihara here every Saturday and Sunday, as you guys know. And go to our website, generations808.com, to listen to our past shows, because I know a lot of you have been calling or emailing me which show, what's being posted. So just go to our new website. Thanks to Mark Moran, we have a new website, very clean, very beautiful, and there's you'll see a rotating top part of the website rotates our current issue with the April-May issue. It'll have the calendar and also the radio shows. Click on that, and it'll get a list of all the radio shows. So thanks to Mark Moran, our new web designer. So anyway, I was talking to Mike Buck, and he loved our cover. And so I really got to thank our photographer, Brian Suda, and our art director, Wilson Angel, who created the magazine, our covers every issue. And I was telling Mike I'm colorblind. So I can see the colors. I just don't know what colors they are, but it is beautiful. I mean, I thought last issue, Facing Alzheimer's, was beautiful because I kind of like purple, because of Purple Rain, and unfortunately he passed away. But anyway, we've been around a little over 5 years, and I belong to a church in Manoa, and we've had pastors right in the past. And then I run into some ladies from Punahou, and so, we have a big church in the Windward side. We'd love to have you guys do your workshops over there. And I said, let me meet your pastor. And he goes, Pastor Jayne over at Windward United Church of Christ. And I sat down with her. I loved what she had to say. And she's got some cute stories she's going to tell. And actually, she's going to be writing for the magazine. So welcome to the show, Jayne. I appreciate you coming down.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So you told me it's been many years since you've been on radio.
Yes.
Did you have your own radio show, or did you do interviews?
No. I've probably been interviewed or did something as a pastor way back in the day, and I remember being on a high school quiz team that did radio rather than TV.
Wow. That's cool.
Surprising I can remember back that far.
Well, I won't tell people you're in shorts and a tank top then, okay? But anyway, Jayne, so your full name is Jayne Ryan Kuroiwa.
Kuroiwa.
Iwa. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so where are you from? Are you a local girl, or?
I'm from the Cleveland, Ohio area, but I married a local boy. So my married life has been half the time in Ohio, half the time here in Hawaii. He's retired now, so we hope this is it. We're here for good.
Well, my next question, when I ever hear this story about, you're a boomer like myself, and, we want to retire here. And I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. I said, well, are your parents still alive?
My mother's alive.
And is she living in Hawaii?
No.
Next question would be?
I'm the daughter who's far away. I have a loving sister who is close to my mother. Okay. They live in Wheeling, West Virginia.
Wheeling, West Virginia. So your mom has a choice: either move to Wheeling, West Virginia, or to Kamiki, Oahu.
That's her choice.
Yeah. Or one of you have to move to Oahu.
Her assisted living place is very lovely. Oh, yeah? I would recommend you get on the list now.
Well, that is, I was telling somebody just the other day, in fact, because I have conversations every day about aging and what I'm going to do when I retire, what I want to do, and where I want to be. And I definitely, that is my plan. Maybe not my wife's plan, but that is my plan, to eventually move to assisted living or retirement, CCRC. But I don't want to move when I'm 80 years old. I want to move in young. I want to be the young kid in town, because everybody I've talked to, whether it's 15 Craigside Plaza, One Kalakaua, Pohainani, Hawaii Kai Retirement, all the facilities, they all say, I wish I moved in earlier.
We all forget how much hard work it is to downsize,
yes,
to move, period. It's physical work, it's emotional work. I would say it's spiritual work as well. But to do that while you're strong is one thing. Or have a lot of friends who can help you with that. That's right. One thing. To wait until you've aged in place, you've done all you can at your own home, The blessing is others can do it for you, but it's, I think, a harder task at that point.
Well, unless you hire senior move managers, one of our partners in a magazine that does a great job and they've moved literally, I don't know, more than a couple thousand families.
So I sort of felt like moved to Hawaii again 3 years ago, and that felt like one of the big downsizing moves. I knew that I was coming into a home that would have a third less space.
Yes, that's one thing about Hawaii. You can live in Vegas and Ohio. I'm sure the houses are 2 to 3 times bigger.
We're fortunate. We live on property that my husband's parents bought. His father was a plantation worker. His mother was a picture bride. And over the years, they saved and were able to buy in the Waialae area. So we have a family home. Otherwise, coming back would have been much more difficult.
Well, at least you can declutter when you move, downsize.
I don't have as many things, and, that's just fine. Yeah. The next move will be even more so. So I'm trying to make my peace with it. I think that's a large part of what aging is you have to make your peace with changing circumstance.
Well, that's what I loved about, when I first met you. You have a really good sense of aging because a lot of pastors, not a knock against pastors, but like the New Hope, and a lot of their congregation is young. And I've been to them, many of them, and they're great. And I when I leave, I got a lot of energy. But, my old church, and I'm going to come to yours as well, Windward United Church of Christ. And now, is it Kailua or Kanioi?
We're in Kailua, but actually it's Aikahi Park, which is kind of halfway between. So we're very close to H3.
Right. So you've been there now 3 years. Mm-hmm. And what brought you to that Windward United Church of Christ?
In our system, churches seek pastors on their own. It's not like a bishop places you somewhere. So it felt like a good match, and I think it still is. The congregation has a large facility, Percy, but it's not all that large in terms of numbers of people. Sunday we worship between 30 and 40 people, but people with a great spirit, very welcoming. We say every Sunday, no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you're welcome here. We try to live that out. And part of that welcome for us is that our immediate residential neighborhoods, Kalaheo Hillside, Aikahi Park, they're folks who bought their first home when the Poly Highway opened up.
Right.
Kailua grew up all at once at that time, and so those people are in their 80s and 90s. They still love their houses, and they still want to be in their neighborhoods that they've raised their kids in. So that means in terms of how our church reaches out, our mission is to try to connect with that community. What are their needs? What can we provide, or how can we connect with them to make their life more meaningful?
Absolutely, and even for our church in town, more and more churches are creating programs to bring them back to the church. But even when I'm researching, I've been researching aging for over 13 years, that a lot of seniors do come back to the church as they get older, right?
I think it's a time when other parts of our life slow down. Mm-hmm. So we have some time on our hands. Maybe we've lost some of our friends. They've moved or they've passed on, and we need some more companionship. So church, temple is an easy way to make those personal connections again.
Right.
It's also a time, I think, when we start wondering what's the meaning of life. Was my life purposeful, meaningful? And when we want to make the most of the years we've got left. So that's a place where we can come be of help or figure that out.
Yeah, when I got married several years ago, one of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to find a church. So we live in the Makiki, Manoa area, and we visited about 5 churches, and we finally found our church and pastor at the Honolulu Christian Church. It was interesting. When I got into the reverse mortgage 13 years ago, one of my first mentors, we got to be good friends. We're still good friends to this day, even though he's retired. And one of the first things he did was, how was your family? Do you go to church? I said, yes. And he goes, have you read this book? Because he belongs to the church that this writer is a pastor, and it's the Purpose-Driven Life. Mm-hmm. And when I read that book, really made me realize that, I plan on being in this field for a long time. I love to give back. But aging and my purpose is really to use my mortgage background and to really help seniors. But also we found that more and more seniors in our kupuna need help, need resources, and really need to understand that 50 and 70 and 80 is not old anymore.
It isn't. And it's we tend to speak of seniors or Nakapuna as one conglomerate. But you look at it, I guess you can start AARP at age 50.
Yes.
But even if you think 60, I now have graduated so that I get discounted tickets at the movie theaters. I made 60 this year. 60 to 70 to 80 to 90 to 100. I just went to someone's 100th birthday party last week.
Wow.
And she was just a delight, fully in her faculties, sparkling conversation, aware of everything happening around her. So that's a whole generation's difference between them. Difference of what kind of music we enjoy, difference of political views, perhaps, many differences across the board. So I've heard somebody say, when you talk about seniors, there are three different kinds. There's go-go, those people that have just retired, and they want to do everything. They want to get their schedule different. Man, I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to travel. I'm going to do what I've always wanted. Then you've got the slow-go, where your body starts talking to you more, or you have to slow down in some ways. You become more tied to your smaller geographical area. Then you got the no-go. The people who really, because of their physical or mental situation, are there, able to do some things, not nearly capable to do what they used to do. So our programming, we try to look at each of those. What are the needs in each case? What can we do that might be of assistance to each of those?
Yeah, and a church is a safe place. It's a trusted place. And so when I heard that you're going to start this called Aging with Grace. Program. That's what really drew me to what you're thinking about and how it's going to work for you. And so, explain to our audience here listening, what do you mean by aging with grace?
Okay, great. This came out of some planning that we did as a congregation, and we thought that this was a good connection between who we are, who our neighborhood is, and what resources we could put to it. So we're looking at how can we make the most of who we are as a smaller congregation. Aging with Grace, we say, is a program initiative, and we talk about it like this. We are connecting God's love and our faith with people in their second shift of life. They didn't want to say seniors. They didn't want to say mature. They didn't want to say elderly. And second shift, that could mean empty nest. It could mean that slowing down. It could... you could be anywhere on the adult spectrum and feel you fit in there, but really they're talking about kind of the second half of our lives.
Right.
There's a Christian writer, Richard Rohr, who has a book called Falling Upwards. And he talks about life is two halves. The first time you're trying to climb that ladder, you're trying to figure out who you are. Right. In the second half, you're less on that road, and you're more on trying to make sense of it and trying to make meaning. So Aging with Grace, we try to do three things. Since we're a church, it's obvious, we're going to look at the spiritual terrain of aging. What are those aspects that you want to have in your life to make it meaningful? How do you make sense of it? If you haven't given much thought to what's this life about, or is there life after death, then it's the time to kind of think about those things. The next thing is to be a place of connection. Churches are safe. We're not trying to sell a product. So when we invite somebody like Generations Magazine in, or another group to come and talk about topics, the kinds of things that they just don't teach us in school. Did anybody teach you what you needed to know about aging?
I'm self-taught. I tell people. It's taken me 13 years to really get a good grasp on
everything.
things.
You think about it. Housing, medicine, relationships. Everything is complex in our society, and there's a whole lot that Oahu is great at, the resources available. I'm surprised, we went to the senior fair at the Blaisdell Center last fall. Booth after booth after booth. There's so much booths. Knowledge. And so to try to disseminate that in little bits and pieces so our neighbors can really understand they have the ability, the power to think this through, to understand and make their decisions. So community resourcing, being the place where people can come to get good information, is a second prong. And for us, the third is to try to be that place of belonging. It may be that people want to join us. Our worship is 9 o'clock on Sunday mornings. It's still a traditional worship. We haven't gone with the loud bands and the drums. Part of the boomer in me wishes we had, but it's traditional. We have a terrific organist, organ, baby grand piano, traditional hymns. The liturgy is such that you're going to feel it's fairly familiar. And I hope I'm a decent enough preacher to keep your attention. I think that's the case. But not only just connect with us and worship, but we're trying to have other groups going on too. Somebody may not want to do that, but they might want to join us every Wednesday at 8 a.m. There's a group that goes walking around the marsh there in Kailua.
That's a nice walk.
Yeah, and it's leisurely. And surprisingly, they have some of everybody. There's an older woman on her walker with her caregiver.
And with a walker.
Yeah. There's several able-bodied, athletic women. There's a grandma who brings her 18-month-old son, who sometimes walks, sometimes strolls. There's at least one dog. And the group has gelled together, open for other people, but they just take it as they need to. Sometimes the woman in the walker sits. Everybody else goes on. She catches them on the way back. So there's a walking group. On Thursday mornings, we have a contemplative outreach group. This is a meditative prayer circle. You know, as we age, we can't do a lot of physical things. We can all still pray. And so this is a silent meditation, 20 minutes. It's done in a group. So before and after, there's a little getting to know folks, but it really is a time to learn how to still the self and listen to what the Spirit might be saying to us. We'd love to start another group that I call our volunteer bucket list group. You know, what would we do with the time? Who do we want to help? What are the groups? And some of us don't know how to plan. You know, how would I know what group to go volunteer at? But I'd love to have a couple of folks who would like to just once a month figure that out and say, okay, come meet us. We're going to do this for 2 hours. And
Interesting
plan
to say
that
that.
out.
We actually are going to start a volunteers page in August. September issue, we're going to have a full page listings of all the volunteer opportunities that we can find. It's more specifically for seniors.
Sometimes you just need a friend to go with you if you're, not certain how to do that yourself. So that kind of thing, I think, is an easy affinity kind of group to go with. Another one that we do sporadically, I'd like to see that generate into something that happens every month. Somebody says, oh, I want to plan the next one. We do cultural events together. Sometimes you don't want to go alone. You don't feel comfortably going to theater alone or dining alone. But if somebody else is going, hey, yeah, I'd love to come along. We have the case on the windward side. The excuse is always, oh, I don't want to go up over the poly at night.
Yeah. Leah's our engineer is from the windward side. Same thing. Or if I have to go to Kailua County and go, oh, too far.
Yeah, it's surprising how long that little road is.
Yeah.
But driving at night can be difficult for some people. And some folks aren't comfortable driving in Honolulu anymore.
Sure.
Or aren't sure of where they're going. So we have, we'll gather together, meet at the church parking lot. We most recently, we went to Tag Theater down at Dole Cannery. One of our members is sometimes a director of plays there. She's a senior. She retired from a long career as a high school theater teacher in Kaimuki High School. So Peggy Ann Sigmund is her name. And Peggy Ann arranged not only a block of tickets for us, but she arranged for the actors in the play to stay afterwards and have an exclusive question and answer period with us. So, there's more things like that I'd love to get us doing, because that way you connect where you feel comfortable. Maybe you grow into other things, but there's plenty of variety.
Yeah. Well, we're here with Jayne Ryan Kuroiwa from Windward United Church of Christ. And so, Jayne, you're on the Windward side, and you started this thing called Aging with Grace. And we are, by the way, the second half of the show, we are going to talk about this workshop we're going to be starting on July 30th. We'll cover that. So you got to stick around for the second half. But I want to go back to, like I said, The Purpose-Driven Life, the book that I read. But do you see, and isn't it common for a lot of seniors, like you said earlier, really want to find where they're at in life and if there's an afterlife? And for myself, it's really about giving back to the community. But a lot of seniors love to do that, like you said, with the volunteers, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a time when we're blessed with more time on our hands than we've had. You just told me about what you're doing today and how this part of your work fits in. But you're a man on the go. You've got a lot of family stuff going on. It's go, 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 go. Once we retire and that starts slowing down, then, okay, how am I going to schedule my days? How am I going to fill them? And what do I want to do? What am I happy I don't have to do anymore? Mm-hmm. I've got adult children, and although I just became a grandmother, he is in Denver, nowhere near me. So how do I connect with children? They're not immediately in my life, but what a great way for me to reach out, help the community, and get some of that kid love back, some of that, just the smiles and the silly things they say. So there's wanting to do good. I think that's part of trying to figure out what's our purpose in life, what's the meaning, why are we here? If I'm mortal, then how can I make the most of it? Is there a way for me to leave a legacy? And sometimes our legacy is simply in the memory of what we've done for other people. That lives on. They remember us.
Yeah, in fact, I did a documentary of my parents' lives about, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago now, where we hired a videographer to videotape my father talking about him growing up in a big island. He was a senior in high school during the 46 tsunami, had to help out with the victims and survivors on the beach. And then we taped my mother growing up in Haleakala Dairy. She told, in fact, if you ever want to start an intergenerational program, my son goes to Acid School, and she came and talked to the kids about what was her memories in growing up in elementary school. And she said, I remember walking through the fields to go to school and make sure we don't step on the cow poop, because that's reality. That's what she had to do. She had to walk a couple miles to school. But it's interesting how we all think back of how we were raised, the values, the morals. And that's one of the things, like I said, volunteerism is big in our family. But that's one of the things we're going to start in August, September. But one thing I found out this morning is that one of our there's a group in Maui that actually every month, once a month, they get a bunch of seniors. You might want to think about on Windward Side, and they all pick a restaurant. Once a month, they go to a restaurant. They contact the restaurant in advance and said, we want to introduce your restaurant to all the seniors, but we want you to make a donation to a nonprofit. So a percentage of the dining bill goes to a nonprofit. Restaurant loves it because they're giving back. They're getting people to know who their restaurant are. And the seniors get to try different restaurants. Right.
And you might end up with a couple new customers that didn't know they would like you and do.
Well, this is in Kapalua.
Yeah. A good way to make connections. I think that's what's so easy to do here in Hawaii.
Oh, with food, too.
Yeah. But there's always somebody who knows somebody, or there's always ways to make things happen.
Yeah. But this group in Kapalua started with 13 people. Now they're up to 50 to 60 people. So I know you mentioned your service is relatively small, but I'll tell you, for you guys listening out there, your church is not slow. It is super busy. Can you tell us a little bit about the other tenants and people that are coming around to the church every week?
I say we're a 7-day-a-week community center.
Yes.
And we are.
You
really,
are.
From 7 a.m. till 9 at night, there is something going on there. We have a lot of community groups, recovery groups, Weight Watchers meets there. You name it. We've got a group that meets, and that's part of the mission of the church. We might take a donation from them, but it really is, we want them to be meeting there. We want to encourage their rehabilitation or their life's journey. Then we've got other building users who rent from us.
Right.
The most recent, just a brand new renter, is Maggie Young. She's an occupational therapist. She specializes in hands and wrists. And most of her clientele are senior citizens who've had a fall or needing to keep the strength that they have. She's a delight, a real extrovert, a happy person, and so she just rents a little room from the church to do her practice. There's a yoga studio there, and they have started adding more and more classes aimed at seniors.
That's a very popular yoga.
Aloha Yoga Kula.
I had a hard time saying that too.
I'm not sure I get the right 3 words in the right order, but they have 2 locations in 2 different churches in Kailua, so they kind of spread themselves across the town. But they've added what they call senior stretch, which
yes, I saw that.
Which is an hour-long yoga class once a week. They found both that they had long-time clients who might have had knee replacement, hip replacement surgery, still wanted to do yoga, but weren't able to do what they did before. So they wanted to keep their practice up. They also had young folks coming to them saying, "Oh, I wish my tutu could do," And so they keep adding classes that help people that may not have the mobility that you think you need for yoga, but it's great for balance, it's great for strength, endurance, breathing, all those things we need.
You need to do that as you age, because you'll see, we have Diane Cadena, our personal trainer in our magazine, and whenever she sees seniors walking, she can identify what the problem is, And
our bodies don't lie.
Yeah, they need to stretch. They need to be able to be strengthened in their hands. I'm curious, though. I wonder if your occupational therapist with the hands, would it help arthritis? When you see her, ask her that.
I would assume it might. And that's from personal experience. When I was in my early 30s, I had rheumatoid arthritis. It affected my hands mostly. It of course, is everywhere, hands and hips. But interestingly enough, I was a young pastor at the time. I had a toddler. The church I was serving, it had 2 full flights of stairs up and half a flight down to get to my office.
Wow.
And I would hobble the whole way. It was a really interesting experience for a 30-year-old to go through that. It instantly made me more compassionate of my older church members.
And how are you now?
In remission for a very, very long time.
Well, good for you. Good for you. Well, we're here with Jayne Ryan Kureiwa from Windward United Church of Christ. We're talking about aging with grace here. We're going to take a short break and come back because we're going to talk to you about our July 30th workshop. Probably the first big one we're going to do on the Windward side. So we'll be right back. Thank you.
We will be right back with Percy Ihara from Generations Radio. If you have any questions or want to be part of our discussion, give us a call at 296-5467. That's 296-5467. This is Generations Radio on AM 690 The Answer.
Did you know 26 million Americans have kidney disease and most don't know it?
The day I was diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I called the National Kidney Foundation, and the young lady who answered stayed on the phone with me and walked me through step by step. She too was surviving kidney disease. And she showed me there could be life after kidney disease.
Visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org. Now you know.
Moon Physical Therapy is here to help you back to recovery. Moon Physical Therapy is located on Ward Avenue across from Sports Authority. Physician prescribed for motor vehicle accidents, workman's comp, or that body pain that comes from rushing to play without warming up. Also event cardiopulmonary rehabilitation with our one-on-one patient care. Moon's Aquatherapy heated endless pool allows for low-impact exercise with less pain on land. We will give you the right exercises to get you back to health. Ask your doctor to prescribe Moon Physical Therapy. Moon Physical Therapy. We achieve results.
Aloha, this is Martha Clopin.
And Al Harrington.
Choosing the right Medicare plan not only saves you money, it also helps you avoid headaches and heartaches down the road.
We want to remind everyone
to listen to a Medicare Moment with Martha, Sundays from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. as we help answer important questions on Medicare so you can stay healthy, wealthy, and wise all year long.
Call me at 543-2073, 543-2073.
I was an addict from the age of 13. I finally decided it was time for a change. I walked into the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center, and that got me ready for the real world. Now, I choose to be guided by Jesus Christ, and today, I'm building a powerful and promising future, free from drugs and alcohol.
Please shop at the Salvation Army family stores. With our discounted sales, your support through your purchase helps men live a clean, sober, and productive life.
Got Vegas on your mind? Get Vacations Hawaii on the line. Vacations Hawaii offers weekly 4- and 5-night Honolulu to Vegas packages, which include 3 meals daily from $6.99. Stay at Hawaii's favorite casinos, California, Fremont, Main Street Station, and Orleans Hotel. Vacations Hawaii will get you there in comfort on deluxe wide-body 767 planes with complimentary in-flight hot meal service. Vacations Hawaii's frequent flyer program gives you future travel discounts and credits. So if you're ready to win big, call Vacations Hawaii at 591-4777 or visit pointVacationsHawaii.com.
Today, more than ever, we local people are living longer than any other state in the Union, with more seniors, baby boomers, and caregivers. Generations Radio promotes the importance to be proactive as we all age. The radio team will focus on issues facing our seniors and their families, finding resources to navigate healthy aging along with financial, legal, and caregiving information. So join Percy E. Howard from 5 until 6 each Saturday, right here on AM 690, The Answer. Focusing on the issues facing our seniors and their families today. Here's our Generations Radio host, Percy Ihara.
Welcome back to Generations Radio. I am Percy here with Pastor Jayne Ryan Kuroiwa from the Windward United Church of Christ. I can't say that fast, but Windward United Church of Christ in Kailua, across Kaikahi Shopping Center. But anyway, our April-May issue is out and about. So check it out with the 3 seniors on the cover. I really shouldn't call them seniors. They probably do more in a day than I do. But they're from the Lanakila Senior Center. And it's Diane, Richard, and Helen. And so thanks to them for being on our cover. Thanks to Mui, their the director for the Lanakila Center, and Justin, their program director. And also Diane Tirada, who works for Catholic Charities that oversees the Lanakila Senior Center. I did want to tell you, May 25th, at Kahala Mall, May 25th, Kahala Mall, 9 to 1 o'clock. They're having a National Senior Health Fitness Day. So Generations Magazine is one of the sponsors. So at the Kahala Mall, you're going to see over 40 exhibitors there. Not all in health and fitness, but about healthy aging. And then on May 22nd is the Walk to Cure Arthritis, by the way. That one just changed. It's going to be at the University of Hawaii down at the track over there. But so thank you for the seniors at Lanakila. Couple cute stories. We did a story, actually, The Honor Was Mine, it's called, on page 12. It features Walter Chun, who is up there. He just turned, let me see if they put the age in here. I don't know if they did or not. He just turned 90 years old. Still goes to the senior club and goes to Pohainani, lives at Pohainani. So happy birthday to Walter Chun. And the cute story, my sister Sherry Goya, who helps with the magazine, wrote the story, and she meets seniors every week, and she finds little stories about these great seniors being very active in our community. In the April-May issue is the list of all the adult health and adult daycare centers in the state of Hawaii. We have Oahu, Hawaii Island, Maui Island, Kauai, and even one on Molokai. So check that out. Keep it as a reference, and they'll also be listed on our website if you lose this issue. But anyway, we're here with Pastor Jayne. So Jayne, at Windward United Church of Christ, your guys are so busy, but I wanted to kind of get back to aging with grace. And, when I first met you, you talked about, aging, and you said, what does the Bible say about aging?
Mm-hmm. says a lot. It says it's coming. Get ready.
I've never heard that. I've been going to Bible school for a while, and I've never heard anybody approach that way.
I think a lot, especially a lot of the New Testament Jesus talks about not letting your ego get in the way. And I think in our young adult lives, that is forefront. So
Yes.
at the point where we start looking in the mirror and, oh, who is that person? That's not what I looked like when I was 20. Then we start making our peace with age. At our church, we use a guiding scripture. It's from Psalm 21. Learn to number your days so that you gain a heart of wisdom. So in one way, I've had somebody say, isn't that a little morbid? Number your days. Uh-oh, they're fewer. But it's, you're mortal. Be aware of that fact. And so what are you going to do? How are you going to fill that meaningfully? A heart of wisdom sounds like a good goal to have.
That should be a title of your next column there. But I like that. And you talk about the spiritual terrain of aging.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of good books out there. Joan Chittister is a Roman Catholic nun who writes on the gifts of aging. Every chapter she takes up something different, like remorse, or that growing sense of you're invisible to other people. When you age, you walk down the street, people don't look at you anymore. What does that mean about how you see yourself or how God sees you? She'll talk about fear. She'll talk about our physical slowing down. And in each of these chapters, she ends with, and the burden of aging is, the burden of remorse, the burden of forgiveness, and the blessing is the other. And she'll talk about both in just beautiful ways. So one of the things we do is try to get people to think about their spiritual autobiography. Not the, I graduated here, I did this, I did that, my business career. But what value-wise did your life mean? And how do you look at each decade that you passed through? What were the lessons there? And what are the things you want to pass on? What's the legacy you'd like to leave because of that? And what does that journey mean is still left undone for you to figure out in your walk of faith?
Right, your spiritual autobiography. That's why I did it for my parents. I really believe we have to document that. So I actually, instead of writing a book or, we taping it audibly, we hired a videographer. So we have it on DVD, and I make copies for all our family. And I'm going to probably go back my parents are 85 and 87 right now. We're going to go back probably in the next 2 or 3 years to see if anything has changed. How is aging, because they did it when they were in early 80s. But just to see, because now we have 40 in our immediate family. 9th or 10th grade grandchild just came. But every year they've grown, they've learned, and they still go to Vegas 6 times a year. They still go on a cruise every year. In fact, they just got back from Vegas. But really about what has changed in their life. And what we do is we try to continue the family, our family beliefs of giving back, spending time with family. Every year we go on a big vacation. Spending time with each other is very important to us. But that's why I want to document that, because these stories are lost when they pass on.
I was really grateful that my father spoke a lot about his experiences. Sometimes it's the men in the family that hold things in, but there's so much that you've endured or so much you've learned that it's helpful to pass that on. I always think my dad was my best teacher, even as he faced his death after a series of small strokes. Finally, and blissfully, he passed in his sleep. He tells the story of being in the Navy and having his commanding officer order him to take a drink at a bar. And my dad was a teetotaler. He was like, okay, what do I do here? How do I stay true to myself and not get myself in trouble in the Navy? He talks of the most meaningful stories ever told. And it was a string of stories. He went for about 20 minutes. This was a time when he was feeling vulnerable in his health. And he just, one evening, as it grew darker, he just kept talking and talking. He told the story about when he was 12 years old and had just joined the Boy Scouts. They went out on a 10-mile hike and camped for the weekend. The very next morning, his father, who didn't have a car, walked out that same 10 miles and had to tell my father, his oldest son, that my dad's mother had passed away that night.
Wow.
And the two of them walked back home. Now, that's pretty amazing. Tells me a lot about my grandfather. He didn't wait for the kid to come back home. He went, and I've wondered what that walk was like, coming back in.
Sure.
But, you know, my dad was a Boy Scout leader for 27 years.
Was he Eagle Scout?
He was an Eagle Scout, and he was what they call a silver beaver, which I think, is that an honor? But for Scout Masters who reach a certain level. But I think that was his very, very first experience of scouting.
Wow.
The day his mother died, and they became a community of support for him that he kept giving back to all his life.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because we're actually going to a Boy Scout meeting tonight for my son. And my father is an Eagle Scout.
And what you can tell the boys is intergenerational stuff is so cool to do. And they have so much. Everybody in my church is hoping that teens and younger will come and teach them everything they need to know about how to use their phone and how to get cool apps and what to do when their computer goes kaplooey, you know. And I've sat in people's homes, older folks who really have no clue what they're doing when they're opening email, you know, that is obvious to you and me. This is spam, stay way clear of this. It just, if you would spend a half an hour a week with your grandma, with the older woman next door, with, you know, there's so much to share back and forth. You will be able to be the technical expert in their life, and they will probably feed you for that. But you will gain their stories and the richness of that. And I think when we hear those from other people, the reflection is then, okay, if that's what they did, I can have courage to lead my life, and I can figure out how I want to be. You know, when I'm another 20 years older, how do I want to be?
Yeah. I wonder if you told that story about your father and your grandfather to your children?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they know.
Yeah, my father was an Eagle Scout, and I'm trying to keep my son in scouting. He likes it so far. I mean, he likes baseball, but it's hard to play sports and be an Eagle Scout. But it's a lot easier today. But if our local hero, Manti Te'o, the football player for San Diego Chargers, played football at Punahou and became an Eagle Scout, he can do the same thing. So, but I like some of the sayings. Now, your first article, I think, is going to be, is it going to be writing about spiritual autobiography, or is it going to be
a little bit? I use the image of looking at myself in the mirror, and seeing that I'm not young anymore, and then what that sets up in me, that desire to make meaning inside. Not be so much concerned about how the outside world sees me, but growing myself on the inside, making myself beautiful on the inside. So I'm encouraging people to do that. I do think that's part of a spiritual autobiography, is relying on those strengths. But some other ideas I have, I have long wanted to do a sermon series, so maybe it'll get into an article in Generations magazine instead of from the pulpit, or maybe both. Maybe we should do both together. I'd love to do a series on old geezers in the Bible, because there's some real personalities there.
Can you give us one of those?
There's lots of them. I think one of the most famous is Abraham and Sarah. Were old, didn't have any children, were beyond the age of having babies. But God had promised them that they would have many, many, many descendants. So this was a frustration in their life. And back in the day, to be a woman who hadn't borne any children was a strong negative. So they have visitors one night. As the story goes, they're really angels, but the couple doesn't know that. And the one says, I'll come back in 9 months, and I'll see your new baby. And the woman who's not part of the men talking, she's in the tent, but she's been overhearing everything. She's been listening at the door. She just laughs because, yeah, right, I'm going to be pregnant. You're kidding. That won't happen. That never happened. Sure enough, 9 months later, a son was born. God told them to name the child Isaac, which means laughter. So the lesson is, God's not finished with you yet. There's still plenty more life in you, and don't think that you know what can and cannot happen in your life yet. Don't you think you control the future, because God's got a lot more goodness in store than you know. So that's one of the positives. There are also stories about older people who have lost their way. When they started out on the straight and narrow, or they were a positive influence in their community, and they became corrupt, or they became lax. And so the judgment is that their leadership is no longer honored. A younger person, more faithful, put in their place.
Have you done any of these yet at your church, these sermons?
I haven't.
You haven't?
But I can easily be talked into it.
Well, maybe you should see about whether you, is it an hour?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, if you can tell me you're going to have it this weekend, I'll come and see you
It won't be this weekend.
Okay.
That one's in the bag, but but I think it would be great to have a series of these. It's just kind of show us the breadth and the depth of what was out there.
Well, because I've read the Bible a little bit, but I've never had anybody approach it that way.
Yeah.
That's what I like about that. Because
some of the stories about when Jesus was born, they brought him to the temple to dedicate him. And Zechariah was the old priest who was there, who immediately recognized, this story is, immediately recognized that this was the Messiah. The baby was the Messiah. And he was a wise old priest, and he said, now I can die happy. I have seen the Lord. You know, everybody else is like, what? You know, what's he see that we don't see? But he knew the wisdom was there with him in his age. He could see. We know that's how it is. Sometimes it's the grandmother or it's the great-grandfather who really knows what's happening, who can really put their finger on a destiny of a child or something of importance that we're not noticing.
Do you talk about, or does the families come and talk to you about when their parent or their auntie, uncle starts having major issues like Alzheimer's? That must be very difficult for families. But on the spiritual side, like when they call hospice in, how is that handled, you folks?
I think people's experiences are so individual when it comes to the capacities that we lose. I think for the most part, our church people and the families who are the caregivers are very compassionate, trying to understand and trying to work best. With caregivers, there can be, there's no place for them to put their upset, you know? I have to be nice to mom all the time, but she's driving me up the wall.
Yeah. And
where do you put that frustration? There's no safe place. So sometimes the pastor is the place where you can admit that or vent that, or prayer in church is the place where you can release and let that go and just say, all right, it's not perfect. Just move on. So there's depression, I think, loneliness that come into play in terms of both the person with Alzheimer's and also the caregiver. And there comes a time when our church members end up needing to be in Alzheimer's care homes. And you really lose that person.
Yes.
We know that as families. Often people will say, it's not my mom anymore.
Yeah.
And there's a sadness in there, helping people value what has been, helping them accept the present. And as Christians, we can help them hope for a better future.
Right. Well, I just thought about, because Alzheimer's Association does have support group meetings every week somewhere on this island. And, we can put them in contact with you. Maybe they might want to have a support group meeting out there. It's very important, because I have several family members and friends that have Alzheimer's, or the parent has Alzheimer's. And the first thing I may tell them is that they need to go to a support group meeting. So you're surrounded by 10 or 20 people that are all in the same boat like you. And so you can learn through their experiences, because it's a long battle. When I got involved with aging 13 years ago, life expectancy was 7.9 years. Today, it's nearly 10 years. The amount of people that's documented with Alzheimer's in Hawaii right now is about 25,000. That's going to double in 10 years, just 10 years. Because we're learning so much more about Alzheimer's, how to document them. But the reason why we want to document them is that because we need to, once they're documented, the family realize that, there's a lot to look forward to, whether you like it or not, but also what kind of resources are going to be out there for them. And
right.
we want to be able to provide them resources.
And it's interesting, the kind of networks we have in the church, we'd be happy to facilitate a meeting space. But one of the women who comes to the meditation group I mentioned is herself a licensed counselor, and she deals with an awful lot of caregivers. That's her niche, to help give care to the caregiver. So when you connect, you find these networks really are broad. It's interesting. Clergy are taught that some of the ways to help those in our midst who have memory concerns is to go back to some of the old hymns that they would have known. They can still draw those up. Music is often one of the last things to go. That's in us so deep. So to draw out times of, it might be an old hymn like Abide With Me that is not a personal favorite. But for someone of an era, a little older than me, that's just, they memorized that. That was part of their childhood. That's been at every important occasion. That's in them deep. Another thing is the kind of rote prayers. Our denomination doesn't do a lot of that, but Lutherans, Episcopalians, Roman Catholics would have a lot of prayers that people have memorized. For us, it's the 23rd Psalm. You start saying the 23rd Psalm, often you'll have people calm down immediately and maybe even join you in the speaking of it.
Wow, that's great. I do want to tell you, everybody, that July 30th, we'll have our first workshop at when we're United Church of Christ. It'll be from 9:30 to 1 o'clock. So you'll see it in the June-July issue. As well, we will probably have Jane come on to our KITV Aging Well segment. That's Saturdays. To talk about the event, we promote it more so. But we're looking at having workshops, classes, 3 different speakers on caregiving, financing long-term care, and simply just aging in place. So, Jane, I thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Any parting last words?
Can I give one plug? Sure. Our next event, open to the public and free, is sponsored by Kokua Mau, which is the Association of Palliative Care and Hospice Professionals. They're doing a 2-part course, 17th and 31st of May. That's a Tuesday night, 6:30 to 8:30. It's on the Conversation Project. And the conversation is, what are your desires about your end of life? Have you told them to your family? Have you told them to the doctor? Have you had resistance if you tried that? Or, how free are you to be able to express your wishes? And it will be helpful ways to guide you in that process, the advice and the concern of others to help you find the way into a meaningful conversation. And the way we say it is, if you did not have the capacity to speak for yourself, would your family know what your desires were, your medical care?
Very important, because a lot of times they do not do that. You need to put it in writing. And I love Kokua Mau. They do a great job. You got to go to one of their palliative poo-poo nights, Thursdays. Once a month they'd have it over there. But yeah, I know Jeanette over there. Okay. But anyway, Yes.
If I can just say, if people want to learn more information about our
your phone
programs, the church phone, 254-3802, our website, and our Facebook page have a lot of information. So the website is www.windward.org. I think it's windwarducc.org. I'm sorry. There's a lot of Windwards.
Give me the phone number again, though. If people are going to call.
The phone is 254-3802.
Great. Jayne, Pastor Jayne, I appreciate you so much. We're looking forward to her column starting in June, July of the Generations magazine. So thank you so much. Don't forget July 30th. You'll see it in the paper. You'll see it in Generations magazine, July 30th, our caregiver workshop there at Windward United Church of Christ. Pastor Jayne, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Listen, everybody, have a great weekend.